Hello and welcome to Saurav's classes again. We move to the next set of questions in the ZAT paper. Question number 12 gives us a paragraph and we are asked to agree with one of the following options based on the paragraph. So let's go through the paragraph first. It says in a 2017 survey of 3,915 American workers, my colleagues and I found that workers report experiencing a sizable voice gap at work. Now, what is voice gap? That is a gap between how much say or influence they feel they ought to have and how much they actually have. So this is the problem. So in the first study, they found that the American workers were reporting an issue with their ability to influence or have a say in matters in their workplace and how much of influence they actually had. On topics such as wages, working conditions, fair treatment, and input into how do they do their work. So this is the problem. There is a problem faced by the American workers that they have a voice gap, as they call it, which is a gap between how much influence they think they should have and how much they actually have. And then now a second study I have just completed with a new team finds that today's workers want forms of voice and representation that go well beyond traditional unions. So the second study says that the workers feel that they should have a different form of representation or different voice to represent themselves. So they're giving a suggestion or putting forth a view of how to address the problem that they're facing. Address the problem. So this is a view of the workers on how to address the problem. So let's go to the options now. The first one says the first study defines the concept and the second study uses the concept in a specific context. No, the first one brings out a problem clearly, and the second one talks about a way to address that problem. The second option says the first study shows the intensity of the problem and the second study shows the limitations of the existing solutions. So they are not discussing the existing solutions at all. They are just proposing a new solution. The first study shows the frustrations of the American workers and the second study shows the inability of unions in addressing them. Now this is a very close one. You might tend to say that yes, the first one is talking about a frustration. That is true. And the second study is talking about the fact that they want a different form of representation or voicing their opinion other than through the unions. So therefore, it can be inferred that the unions are not able to address their issues. So this is a close one. But it is not clearly told that the unions are incapable of addressing the problems. That is not told. So this can be inferred in a different way, but this is not strictly told in the second case. The fourth one says the first study highlights the existence of the problem. Yes, it highlights the existence of the problem of voice gap, and the second study highlights the need for new ways of solving it. That is correct. It is talking about a new way to solve the problem. The new way is to go beyond the traditional unions. And the fifth one says the first study focuses on the need for fair representation and the second study discusses forms of representation. No, it just gives one possible solution of representation. It doesn't discuss the forms of representation that are that are prevalent. And yes, the first one, implicitly focuses on the need for fair representation. That is true. But the second study does not discuss the forms of representation, so therefore it is incorrect. The most appropriate option is option D, which clearly says that the first one talks about a problem and the second study talks about a possible solution. We move to the next one, which says, here we are given 5 sentences and we have to arrange them in the proper sequence. So we will use the keywords again to find the links between the sentences. The first one says fast food intake. So we come across the term for fast food. Fast food intake for more than 3 times a week is associated with greater odds, that means greater possibilities of atopic disorders such as asthma, eczema or rhinitis. Thus, it should be definitely and strictly controlled in children as it does no good. So the first sentence says that fast food or junk food is associated with greater possibility of diseases. The second one says regular junk food intake can lead to physical and psychological issues among children. The third one says lack of vitamins such as A and C and minerals such as magnesium and calcium encourage the development of deficiency, diseases and osteoporosis, as well as dental caries due to higher intake. Now notice in the third sentence we don't have a direct reference of junk food or fast food. So we move on to the next sentence. The fourth one says junk food which are rich in energy with lots of fat and sugar are relatively low in other important nutrients such as protein, fiber, vitamins and minerals. So therefore we can clearly see that R should come after S. S should be before R, and P also should come after S, because S is bringing in the fact that junk food do not have certain elements of nutrients in them, and both R and P are talking about the fact that due to lack of these nutrients there can be diseases. So we move to the last one, which is T, which says emotional and self-esteem problems along with chronic illnesses in later life due to obesity are the issues associated with the junk food. So we have junk food in 4 of the sentences, which is P, which we have seen will come later, R, which is talking about the junk food intake can lead to problems, and then we have S, which will come towards the beginning of the sequence, and T, which again talks about junk food. So if you now notice that Q actually introduces the term junk food and what it is. So it says regular intake of junk food can lead to problems. So therefore Q should be the first sentence, because it is bringing in the association of diseases or problems with junk food intake. Then S is defining what is junk food. So S is actually elaborating the concept of junk food and telling us that it is low in certain nutrients such as protein, fiber, vitamins and minerals. So S is qualifying or defining junk food. So therefore S should follow Q. Then we go to the next sentence, which would be R, because R is talking about, is again elaborating and explaining the lack of vitamins and minerals and what effect it has. So you see, S is telling us that junk food is lacking in these contents of nutrients like vitamins and minerals, and R is expanding on that, saying that because it lacks these nutrients, therefore it can lead to certain diseases like osteoporosis and others, dental caries and others. So R will follow S. R will follow S. And then we have T, which says emotional and self-esteem problems along with chronic illnesses in later life due to obesity are the issues associated with the junk food. Now this junk food is being referred to the junk food that is mentioned in S and Q. So S and Q carries the word junk food. T will come here, which is referring to this junk food that is being referred or mentioned in the Q and S, and it is telling us that emotional and self-esteem problems are issues associated with the junk food. So this places T here, and P will follow T because it says fast food intake for more than 3 times a week are associated with the greater probability of problems like asthma, eczema or rhinitis, and it should be strictly controlled. So P is again stressing on the fact that junk food can lead to problems, but notice that P is referring to it as fast food. So therefore P is bringing in a slightly different term, though both are same, but P is different. P is bringing in the word fast food, which is not exactly linked with Q, S, and T, and therefore P will be placed last. So the correct order would be Q, S, R, T, and P. So option B, which says Q, S, R, T, P, is the correct one. We move to the next question. Question 14, which says, read the following paragraph and answer the question that follows. And the question is, which of the following can be best concluded from the above paragraph? So let's see what the paragraph is saying. The paragraph says, in Australia, jellyfish are most common between November and May. In Hawaii, jellyfish often show up on south-facing beaches 8 days after a full moon. So it's associated with full moon in Hawaii. In the Mediterranean, blooms usually appear in the summer. Blooms is a group of jellyfish in this case. Unfortunately for travelers, there is no worldwide database for recent jellyfish sightings, and tourism officials are sometimes reluctant to publicize jellyfish swarms out of the fear that such news will scare off visitors. So what we see in the passage is, it is talking about jellyfish sightings, and it is telling us that this differ in different places like Australia, Hawaii, and the Mediterranean, based on climate or based on conditions of moon and season, etc. Moon and season are the two causes that are associated with jellyfish sightings, is what the paragraph is telling us. And full moon is referring to the fact that it is associated with the movement of the moon. It is associated with the movement of the moon, and it is associated with the seasonal changes in certain places. So we know that seasonal changes happen due to the movement of the Earth around the Sun, and therefore it is referring to movement of the Sun and the Moon. I'm sorry, the Earth and the Moon. So let's go to the options now. The first one says celestial bodies have an influence on jellyfish sightings. This can be concluded because it is clearly referring to the movement of the Moon and the movement of the Earth due to which seasons occur. So therefore, celestial bodies means heavenly bodies. The Earth and the Moon are celestial bodies. So A can be concluded from the passage that these bodies or the movement of these bodies have an effect on jellyfish sightings. The second one says economic interests influence security advisories. Now it is not talking about security advisories, it is specifically talking about jellyfish sightings. C says tourism officials hide the truth about jellyfish sightings. Now it is true that tourism officials sometimes they do not notice the word sometimes they do not publicize this news of jellyfish sightings, but it is incorrect to say that they always hide the truth. So this is not fully correct. Option D says seasonal variations in the marine temperature impact jellyfish sightings. Now we don't know whether that the marine temperature variations has anything to do with jellyfish sightings. It is just told that they are associated with seasons in certain cases. So this is not told in as per the passage. The last one says tourists visiting north-facing beaches in Hawaii do not spot jellyfish. It is not told very clearly. It is just said that jellyfish show up on south-facing beaches sometimes 8 days after a full moon. We are not told anything about the north-facing beaches, so we cannot conclude anything on that. So the best conclusion can be option A, which says celestial bodies have an influence on jellyfish sightings, which is clearly evident from what we see in the passage.